So we got podcasts, we got YouTube, we've got books, we've got socials, all the different social platforms. You're just omnipresent in all of them, and you're able to disseminate whatever idea you have. Do you just effortlessly you just effortlessly go between each channel, or is it just whatever you're paying attention to that day? Do you have a system, a process?
Oh no, I effortlessly go between each channel.
May I have your attention, please?
Welcome to Accounting High. It's freshman year at a brand new school. Here, we have no rules in place as we're on a mission to set our own traditions. So hang tight and learn with us as we grow. At Accounting High, you can expect to gain knowledge in a completely different way than what you may be used to, with some fun and oftentimes colorful conversations. Whether you loved high school or you hated it, here's your chance to be a part of an unforgettable experience redone. While you're here, don't forget to follow us on Spotify or subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may be listening to us right now so you don't miss out on any new episodes. And feel free to leave us a 5-star review letting us know how the school year is treating you. So sit back, relax, and open your mind because class is in session.
I repeat, may I have your attention, please?
This is another public service announcement brought to you in part
By Accounting High,
the views and events expressed here are
of the next generation of accounting and tech professionals leading this space.
the events and suggestions are not to be taken lightly. Children should not partake in the listening
Of this podcast.
Anything else?
Yeah.
So without further ado, introducing the star of our show.
Scott Scarano, solo.
We're gonna have a problem here.
We got a very special guest. It's been a long time coming. We've got from across the world, Heather Smith, the other side of the globe, other side of me at least, of the globe, coming from Australia. What part of Australia, in Heather?
Brisbane, Australia.
Dope. So, let's see. Let me, the formal introduction, if you don't know, Heather is the queen of the cloud, I would say. Cloud Stories is the podcast. The platform is Heather Smith. She's got her own personal brand. I think you define personal brand for me. Like when I think of people with a personal brand, you've got the color that matches your website, that matches your hair. You're on all the platforms, and we'll talk about that today too. But you present yourself as like it's also the Xero queen too, not just the cloud queen, but the Xero queen. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your life from the early age? You could start high school, you could start wherever. Let's just dive in.
Well, that was a very kind intro, Scott, and thank you so much for having me on your show. I have been a long-time listener, and look, I updated. You probably can't read that, but it says...
Oh, dope. I do read it.
Accounting High.
Awesome. And you got the red right above it, and that's my new colors too. So.
Yeah. I wasn't sure that was uni colours. When I was 14 years old, Miss Older walked in the room and she drew a chalk T balance on the blackboard. And I fell in love with the balance of accounting and the symmetry of accounting and the calmness that accounting gave you, and recognised that that was something that I could learn and travel internationally with. And so I went from there embracing accounting and using it as a global passport. So I graduated from my accounting essentially degree, flew out on the next plane to London and arrived home back in Brisbane 10 years later with a 20-foot container, a husband and 2 children. During that time, I worked for 3 years in England, 3 years in Canada and 3 years in Singapore, and did a whole lot of traveling in between. And I was able to land in these countries and use my accounting skills and use my intelligence, my accounting skills, because they are so transferable. I'm not a tax accountant, and while I do have my practice, I have a limited tax compliance registration, but I failed tax twice. You know, it took me 3 times to pass it. No one wants me to do that.
There is not the same kind of balance and zen with tax as there is with accounting.
No, absolutely not. No. So very, very focused on my family and my children first. And about 15 years ago, my accountant, my actual tax accountant, said to me, "Why don't you start a bookkeeping business?" And so I looked into that, and I eventually started Anise Consulting, which was very much probably sort of the foundation of bookkeeping, but fixing up accounts and training people in how to use accounts. And I always loved writing. So I would drop the children off at school. I then had 5 hours to work, pick the kids up, and then I'd spend 3 hours in the evening once they'd gone to bed, writing and debriefing and dissecting what had actually happened that day. That writing I just sort of pushed out into the universe, and eventually picked up a blog, was writing for sort of various business blogs. And one day I received an email from Wiley Business saying, "Hey, we like what you're writing about. Would you like to write a book with us?" Which I kind of screamed with excitement because it's something I never dreamed I could do. Fast forward, I wrote 2 books with them, and then Rod Drury, who at the time was the founder, who is still the founder and CEO of Xero, contacted me and said, "Look, hey, how about you write a book about Xero? Let's get it into the Amazon and the Apple stores." And so I took that to my publishers, and they said, "Okay, we would like to do that under the For Dummies brand." And I was like, "Okay, whatever, however we can get there, we get there." I then kind of went on a 6 or 8 week intensive training course, learning how to write in the For Dummies style, because I'm an accountant. I can write, but I'm not the best writer in the world. And I went through this intensive writing boot camp, essentially, and they got me to write out what the forecast contents. They got me to write out a business plan for the book. So when you pitch a book, essentially it's a business plan for the book, what the audience is going to be, who's going to read it, how are you going to promote it, etc. And I also had to write out a table of contents, which out of interest was 1,000 words. So that's how comprehensive it was. Then they needed me to write a practice chapter. That practice chapter went to 30 people for review all over the world, including a reverend. And it kept coming back to me with slight amendments, etc. But eventually we got the whole thing approved. And so we caught up at Xerocon New Orleans, and that was me signing books of my 10th book, because that was the Xero for Dummies was in its 5th edition, and I've written other books around businesses and operating businesses in the meantime. So I very much and I'm very comfortable sitting in the micro business space, running a lifestyle business around my family that I was able to travel with, and that I was able to work around my children being my top priority. And when you only have, if I jump back, when you only have 5 hours to play with and someone explains to you the concept of the cloud, you've got, wow, I can now bill for 5 hours rather than drive 30 minutes to get to someone's site, sit on site for 3 hours and then drive home, etc. So it instantly, once I was able to do that, was increasing my income. And I was just the biggest advocate for, and back in those days, I was doing it on remote terminal servers. I was using MYOB, which is a popular Australian product at the time. And I've just kind of evolved to obviously do it in the Xero platform. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a summary and background of where I'm from.
Oh, no, that's beautiful. It was a little meandering, but this is how I tell stories too. So we started at 14 and we ended with 10 books and Xero and Rod Drury, and I got a lot of notes here, but let's kind of go. How old are your kids now?
25 and 23.
25 and 23.
This is my son's. I'm speaking to you from my son's bedroom. He moved out several years ago.
Okay.
So this is now my office.
Now, yeah.
My office. Yeah.
You got the standing desk. You said a phrase to me on our last call, glocal, right? And a lot of the things that you've been describing, you've been traveling, you're all over the place, yet you can do most of your work from your house. First, describe that term for me, glocal.
Glocal is a global outlet with a local focus. So when you go somewhere, you very much focus on interacting with the locals, buying from the locals, supporting the locals, learning about the locals, but still have this global understanding of what is happening around you. And I think for me, that also means that I'm prepared to move from that position as well. So I will be here at my local town of Brisbane, still aware of what's happening globally, but very focused on doing things locally, taking photos of the local flowers, going to the local shops, and supporting the local small businesses. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yet you're on the other side of the globe, yet I still feel very connected to you. I see you online. You're very connected to the Xero to cloud community, to be specific, all over the world. I think Xero has made the world, and I've said this before on other episodes, made the world a lot bigger and a lot smaller at the same time for me. And that's my ground zero for a lot of the connections I have in the cloud space and in the world. I feel like, you could be very hyper local to your hometown, your city, but then also to your profession. And if your profession lends itself to people all over the globe, then it's still a bit of a small world. What do you think of that? Like you've got a lot of close friends all over the world.
Absolutely. And I really enjoy that aspect of it. And I really enjoy learning the different perspectives of how they're looking at something. And the fact that we think that sometimes this issue is just caused by our politician who's down the road, but in fact it's a global issue, and we maybe need to look at it on a global scale and identify what's happening with that. I'm very grateful to have friends all over the world and to hear what they're doing and learn from them as well. Sort of constantly, I sometimes say that some of us are at the edge of a digital dirt track, and we're kind of pushing each other along, and sort of we've got machetes and we're sort of cutting down the bush trying to figure out what's next, how do we get through this, what's the best journey, because this journey hasn't been done before. The pyramid scheme accounting partner practices has been done before. There's tons of books on how to do that. The way we're evolving and the way the industry evolving hasn't been done before. And so bouncing off and seeing how they're doing it and how they're navigating it is extremely interesting.
So that example that you brought up, I've heard in other fables, other books, of the visionary, the person that needs to climb on top of the tallest tree to see which direction people are chopping those machetes so they don't end up in a circle, so they don't end up going in the wrong direction. You need somebody up there. Would you consider yourself at that peak, or that peak, what's the bird's nest or the widow's peak? What do they call it? Like, because you do have a global view of this. You went to 3 Xerocons this year. Like, you're all over the place.
What I think I'm good at is surfacing the sentiment of the community and talking to the community and listening to the community and listening to the community and surfacing what's happening with them. So I don't necessarily say I've anything personal to say. I'm surfacing what is happening there, and that's almost like a sort of a newsletter representation of the community. So I'm not leading. I'm not telling people where to go, but I'm there with them, trying to support them on that journey. And maybe if I see someone doing this, I can talk to them and say, hey, I know someone else who's doing that, and this is the way they're doing that. Does that work for you? And not necessarily solving all their problems or providing the full blueprint, but providing the next step.
We did an episode on purpose. I don't know if you listened to that, one of Nick's tips episodes, and we talked about the difference between a creator, a maker, a leader, and a guide. What you just described to me was a guide, not necessarily the leader who's coming up with everything, but the guide who's steering people in the right direction through the advice of others, through the information of others, and disseminating it to the world.
Yeah. Yes. And shout out to Nick. I love hearing Nick on the podcast.
Oh, yeah. She's awesome.
But yeah, because when Rod Drury came into my life, it was like, wow. What can I do for you, Rod? What can I do for you? Tell me what you need. And you know, like, you sit back and when you write a book, you're not going to make.
Were you a little disappointed that you were already married, that you already had a family when you met Rod?
No. I'm very much in love with my husband. It'll be 30 years next year. No, it's what he can do.
Yeah.
Like, as it is what you can do for the community. You can do a lot of things for the community that are different. So no, it's, I could see that Xero was going to be global and would give me that 14-year-old who recognized that with accounting she could work anywhere in the world. With zero knowledge in accounting, you can now work anywhere in the world. You can be anywhere and your clients can be anywhere. And that is pretty exciting. So that's what I recognized he was going to be able to give us, plus the data that we're going to be able to, and we're still uncovering that data that we can get out and we can surface for small businesses and really be able to help them. So, yeah, and so very much I agree with you, the guide. I haven't put it that way before, but yeah, probably more of a guide.
So Rod is the godfather of cloud accounting, is what I gather. I got to have him on the show sometime. Maybe you can hook that up too. We could talk about that offline. That would be dope. He's but I feel like Xero did usher in a new evolution or revolution. There was MYOB, but I don't hear about that in the States.
No, not in the States. No, you wouldn't hear about that. And it wasn't remote terminal services. It's just the functionality. It wasn't
really cloud.
MYOB. No, it's just connecting to computers. So whatever you're on, if you're on a desktop QuickBooks, I could connect with you via remote terminal services now. Mm-hmm. So
they still have that. They still have QuickBooks just servers that people tap into. I forgot what they even call that. I'm too far removed from there. We're not going to go down that road. This isn't a QuickBooks episode, right? We don't even talk about QuickBooks much on this show. We don't even talk about the tools much.
And while you did introduce me as Queen of Xero, I do try and be neutral when it comes to the accounting software. It's just I know that world better, and I am more involved with that world. But right. I'm still friendly. I still speak with all the people and try and learn from them.
Well, you also work with very many different brands. I was going to go into that later, but we can just start there. Like, you have an entire page of just about the endorsements and all the different, like, you try not to leave anybody out. That's part of, like, on your social platforms, it's got, like, I just love the way that you set up that branding and, like, you got everybody's name in there, and then you got one different color of pink. And I'm going to get into the colors too, but start me on the journey of working with different apps, because I see this, it's more and more common with the people I run into in Australia because of their connection with a lot of these apps. A lot of the apps we use in this cloud space did originate from your side of the your side of the pond.
It is so exciting to and hopefully one day you'll get to go to New Zealand and get to travel around New Zealand, because it's really exciting that you had this country and Rod Drury comes up with this idea of Xero. Mm-hmm. And then around him, Jared Armstrong goes, hey, I could invent MinuteDoc, which will be time tracking. And Richard Francis goes, hey, I can invent a reporting solution that can connect into Xero. And is his name? I think it's Adam Wallace from Released invented a solution that will connect into Xero and do retail leasing. And you have Timely, which is for hairdressing salons, that connects into Xero. And Vend, I think it's Vaughan from Vend, connects into Xero and does all of your point of sale. And so just really exciting, the ripple effect and the business effect that one catalyst of Rod Drury had in New Zealand. New Zealand's a small country, and so things can get rolled out and easily tested amongst intelligent people quite fast, and they have quite a simple infrastructure. So that's something to sort of keep in mind. And so that's sort of evolving. That's all very close and tight into New Zealand. And over here in Brisbane, I'm about a 4-hour flight from New Zealand. And here just locally in Brisbane, we have Fathom, which is the reporting analytical tool. But we also have down on the Gold Coast, one of the ladies, Amrita Abbott, she sold her superannuation or pension business platform for $25 million. So a female founder exited for $25 million, and she started a company called Anature, which does digital e-signing and proof of identity, which is becoming more and more and more important. And it is really exciting how people are finding these really tight niches and focusing on them and building a tool. And look, I was listening to Blake and David speaking with Hector Garcia the other day, and he's invented a tool for QuickBooks. And so I know that that's moving out of Australia, but he's invented a tool that just sit on your browser that will help you through QuickBooks. And I think that's really exciting. And a lot of these businesses have been developed from the accountants within the industry. Ignition, Guy Pearson, as many people will know, accountant within the industry. So, yeah, that just all of those stories, that inspiration is very exciting, I think.
It speaks to the community that Xero has always cultivated and brought forward, and like that has changed a lot of people's mindsets around how they operate. We talk about the infinite game a lot on this podcast. I'm writing a rap on that, and that also kind of talks about changing your mindset around competition, around business, and I feel like what Rod did with Xero definitely speaks to the innovation and being open, and he changed how Intuit operated with QuickBooks. They opened up their API in response to Xero, and that creates innovation. That creates an entire there's more support around your product because you're just doing, he kind of started at the epicenter. That's where I always think of when I think of the epicenter of this revolution. It's from that area, and that kind of also speaks to how you've evolved as well, and your mindset around this, around the community, around this, we can call it glocal community, but everybody is very interconnected, yet they're all focusing on solving their problems. And if you could focus on one problem and solve one problem for your accounting firm like Guy did, or for an industry, it's obviously it's going to be more successful. We've seen a lot of successes in all of these little niche apps. You can't really say little anymore because the apps that are selling for 25 million, that's not a little, that's not a small number.
No, yeah.
So I feel like that's been the new wave of business, but also has changed accounting too. And I think the world is going that way, and that's largely because of our connectedness with social networks too, and the cloud. So all of that has kind of led to an inevitable future where everybody's connected and everybody's working together, yet they're still very separate. Like we're all, you're in your spare bedroom at your house. I'm in my basement. I don't really leave the house that much. Like I feel very connected to a lot of people, but I've got to get out of the house too. So I see people on socials. I have this 2D interaction with people on the computer, on a mic, but seeing people in person has really changed my mindset on what I want out of work too. I can't work from home. I'm one of those people that I would need an office if I didn't have the opportunity to travel and see people at different conferences and different events, because I need that in person. So do you crave that interaction with people? Like you've been traveling a lot. Like why travel? This was something that you had at 14 years old. You connected accounting to traveling the world. Not many 14-year-olds do that. Not many people see that as an opportunity. And I feel like, your mindset around that, it could have been any profession. You could still see that connection. And this was before the cloud. This was before everybody was interconnected. You just saw balance and symmetry in accounting and then jumped to, I'm going to travel with that. That's dope. So yeah. I guess tell me a little bit more about the traveling part.
Okay. So I love traveling and have traveled extensively. And now that my children have left home, will continue to travel extensively. I think it comes down to, I looked on at the Xerocons happening and wished I'd gone and wished I'd gone and wished I'd gone, and was kind of sitting around going, hoping someone would invite me and sort of sponsor me to go on it. And I was like, sort of two things. One of them was we had the challenges of the last 2 years, and my glass was really, really empty from them, and I felt really hopeless from that. And the other thing was just make magic happen. Make your own magic happen. And by just planning it out and putting the pieces of the puzzle together, it all fell into place. And it was this massive domino train. And I can't believe it all worked. but it did, and I'm extraordinarily grateful. And I was so present and alive and alert for every single moment of my tour to Xerocon London, and then Xerocon New Orleans, and then Xerocon Sydney. And so extraordinarily grateful. And everyone that I met, trying to learn from them and hear their energy and absorb, I really appreciate the moment with them. I popped up a photo yesterday of us in the, it was a New Orleans theatre, I think it was, and that was just everything was just amazing, and every room had something different happening in it. But the girls didn't teach me the line dance beforehand, so I'm dirty on that.
Yeah, that was an experience too. This Xerocon, and I'm sure all three that you went to, you was three, right? All three were unique in their own ways, and also, I mean, they picked a great place. They picked the most unique places in the States to usually have the Xerocons, and they've always been in different places. It's not like we're going to just do it in Vegas every year. This is always unique. Tell me a little bit about, give me some takeaways from the UK one and I guess, Australia.
For the people, and Sydney, Australia. Yeah. So for the people who don't know, the one in London was actually held on what was on record the hottest day England or London had ever experienced, and so that was, I think it was the Tuesday, and then it went into the Wednesday and Thursday. So the event, it wasn't hot in Brisbane terms hot, but the venue couldn't cope with that type of heat. So it was really hot, and nothing.
Xero never wins with weather. Never. There was one in Austin and it snowed. It was in Austin, Texas, and it snowed here, and it never snows in Austin. They never win with weather.
But it kind of like it sealed we've just survived 2 years, and now you're putting us in this brutal experience. Plus, they've got an economic crisis. We've all got this economic crisis happening. Plus, at the time, they didn't have a prime minister in place. They were in this limbo state with no prime minister in place. And it was just the perfect place to have it, because you're around the absolute best of the best, the forward-thinking accountants and bookkeepers who are bouncing energy off one another. And I kind of started my tour very hopeless and just instantly felt full of hope that these people, regardless of the world economy, regardless of what government was in place, they were going to be able to help their small business as they had done for the last 2 years. They were going to be able to ride out what needed to happen. And everyone collaborates and everyone is listening to one another. And many people in the industry are a phone call or a Zoom meeting away if you need to tell them something to help. And so that was just amazing, that I just felt the ripple effect of that in London. And I will do a shout out that the ignition party was phenomenal. It was on top of a car park in London, but they had transformed it into a sort of a tropical Hawaiian theme. And the London gala was 5 stories high. And I think it was like an hour before it's about to end, and I realised they hadn't even done 3 of the stories. There was so much happening there. So, yeah, that was exciting. And Sydney Xerocon is on a far greater and bigger scale than either the London or New Orleans, as you can expect. They had 60 exhibitors. To walk between sessions, just the speaking sessions could take you up to 10 minutes. They had lots of different sessions, lots of different education pieces on. And they did have about 6 people out from London, from the UK, listening in and trying to absorb what was happening. So I do think that it's useful to be around different people and see what their issues are and see if they're the same and see where they're different and what you can learn from them. And, of course, as you can imagine, there was lots of fanciful jugglers and acts happening all the way through it, keeping it quite entertaining and light. And at each one, all of us hadn't seen each other for 1,000 days. So just so much hugs and so much support, because I think a lot of people had gone through some really, really challenging and dark times during all of the COVID taxation legislation dropping on us and having to navigate that. So it was just truly wonderful and euphoric. energetic. And that's the people, and that's the community. That's very much the community.
So going through dark times, a lot of people did have some form of metamorphosis or transformation. Did you have any big changes during COVID in your life or?
So back in 14, 15, something pretty horrible happened to me, and I built up a lot of resilience from that. And so when March the 17th, when the news report started happening, March 17th, 2020, I was like, I'm resilient. I've got this. I launched a 2-hour daily Zoom meeting for anyone in the world to join in on. And I ran that for a full year, every single work day. So I didn't have any big transformations. I kind of just had it. I was like, okay, I'm ready to, what I went through is going to help me support the community. And
you were a guide.
Taking day by day by day by day. If I can just get them through another day, if I can get them through another day, this is good. And going, when people were making off-color comments, going and sort of tapping on them and saying, look, I sent people a lot of tea. I believe tea and hot baths can solve a lot of the problems in the world. So just grabbing people and saying, okay, let's get you back on. Let's get you talking to someone because we're all going through this. Yeah, So no, but because I was already there, I was already very family focused, already very travel focused, and just need to be survive and get through this with my community.
You were up on the tallest tree in the crow's nest, guiding everybody. Let's talk about, you didn't always have the pink pop and the color. Your hair has changed over the year. And the pink pixie cut is what I would say right now. You got the pink pixie cut. It's evolved a little bit as well. I think you've stuck with the pink for as long as I've seen. I'm sure there were other changes before, but that's part of your brand too on the website and everything else. So it matches. I think that's cool. Tell me the start of that. Because there are some pages on your website where you just had longer hair.
Yeah.
No color.
So in my mind, I have long Auburn Brooke Shields type hair, but at a very young age it went white, and white hair picks up pollution. So within moments of washing it, it would be yellow and it would look nasty, and it required a huge amount of upkeep just to keep it the natural color, which was white. So going short helped me be productive, massive productivity gains from having short hair. In terms of you wash it and you dry it all in a matter of, you can be 4 or 5 minutes out rather than sort of the 20 minutes of long hair. And because it's still white, it still picks up the pollution. So the colorings, which are $3 in a tube, mask that. So it wasn't a grand scheme. It was really more about productivity. And I have all colors of the rainbow on my shelf. I went to an Intuit conference. I had 3 bottles of green hair dye. Do you think I could get it green? I turned up with bright blue hair. I just kept putting more and more of the stuff in, and I couldn't get it green. I felt so bad. And because I was speaking on stage as well for them, I just went up to them all and apologized. I was like, I'm so sorry. It's so blue.
They thought you were doing it on purpose because it was like Xero.
And I bought 3 different brands of green, and I still couldn't get it to go green.
Are these permanent though, or are they?
No, they just wash it. Oh no. This is still from when you saw me in New Orleans. What you're looking at now. So you put it in. It's really vivid when you put it in, and then every wash it fades.
I need to do that. I was going to dye my hair blue for Halloween, and
yeah,
I'm not quite ready to go permanent, but I'm going to be Rick for Rick and Morty. I got my hair long. I've been growing it just for this Halloween, so I think I can. I think I'm going to do it. I'm close to Halloween, and I still haven't really taken the step yet of dyeing it. So,
but it's brilliant. Like within 3 days of it dying, so you got to if you want it brilliant, you have to do it really quick before you're going to do it.
Brilliant. Tell me brilliant.
Yeah.
Because brilliant. Right. Well, no. I like the word brilliant. This is a word I hear in UK a lot. Do they say brilliant a lot in Australia too?
I don't know.
Okay. You say it, right?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. Well, it's bright and the shimmery. So when I travel, I have to go, okay, this is the time when I'm going to be able to safely go into someone's shower, color my hair without coloring all of their walls, and then sort of use their bedroom or whatever, like a hotel bedroom, without coloring their bed sheets and stuff with my hair.
Okay.
It just got very exciting then, didn't it?
I did. That's dope, though. Yeah, because
But I think you're very much into rap music, and I'm actually quite like rap music as well. And I think it's a lot about picking interesting words. Like I get the feeling that you find words as well and go, oh, this is a nice word, this is a good word, and you play with it.
yes, for sure. That's all I've been doing today is working on this rap. I've been working on for a while, but it's a crafting process, right? And you got to pick. It's like painting, almost. The way I'm doing them, it's like a puzzle too. I'm just kind of picking things up and moving them around, and finding pieces that fit and that don't. I'm not really like just writing freehand too. But
and just sometimes finding that right word that replaces 5 words, and that's just perfect for something is really quite exciting, and it doesn't necessarily naturally happen. You have to sort of sleep on it and stuff.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And then sometimes they reveal themselves when you're not even looking. So given that time and space there. So let's keep going on the creative ventures too, because I see you as being a, I'm not going to use the word creative anymore. Dave Barrett told me that's not a good word, or in so many ways. He said people that label themselves as creatives are typically the least creative. And I kind of agree with that though. There's a lot of people who label themselves as being a creative, and they're dull, they're boring. I don't find them creative at all. They're just work in the creative space. I don't see you labeling yourself as being creative. You haven't talked about that at all this episode yet. You do a lot of things that are unique and different, and that in and of itself is creative.
So I kind of think I sit at the intersection of accounting and content creation.
Aha.
So not creative content, but content creation.
Keep going. I like this. This is so you're creating. Okay, that was the statement. So you're creating content, and they create. So the difference between labeling creative, and I think that's also something that he said too. It was like being the verb or the noun, right? So you're creating things,
content,
but you're not a noun creative.
No, and I think and that's again probably a leader, and I don't think of myself as a leader.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then into the content creation. So you're very active on the socials. Give me that journey too, and what your thoughts are on there, because there's another part of that conversation that we had, and when we talked about socials, I said socials is the new cigarettes of today. And there's a lot of things that can be said about how socials are used and what they're promoting on the platforms and the addictive nature of them, comparing that to cigarettes. He also said that people have said this about different forms of entertainment throughout all of human history when it comes to whether it's initially like in the 1600s, books, then radio was the devil, and then TV. I know me growing up, it was always everybody blamed everything on TV and violence, and then video games, then internet. Now it's socials are vilified, right? So I've haven't been able to grapple with that because I'm just not a socials person. I've been trying to this year. I've been trying to get on more. Been on Twitter a lot more. I've been on LinkedIn a bit more. I'm not even on Instagram at all. Facebook, no. But you effortlessly navigate all of them. And in our last conversation, you said you go from like Twitter to Instagram to Facebook group to LinkedIn with your ideas and posts, and they evolve throughout those. So I guess speak on the socials and how did that start for you?
So I think that in the right context, the socials can be used really well. And I focus on sharing micro learnings via the socials and putting stuff out there, and then connecting with people who are of the same interest as me. I probably back in 14, 15 went really hard on them, and probably when they first came out, sort of went really hard to sort of grow them as much as possible, and learned that there's different types of people on the different platforms. And there's sort of a number of ways I could navigate discussing this, but one of the ways I share is that when I'm writing a book, I tweet a lot, and a blog post is 350 words, and essentially that is 3 tweets. So a blog post, a single 350-word blog post, is 3 tweets and 3 ideas. And then you top it with a start, 100-word start, finish it with a 100-word conclusion, and you've got a blog post there. If you have 7 blog posts on the same topic, you now have a chapter of the book. And if you keep putting stuff out there and pulling it together, you are creating more blogs and more chapters of a book. And thus, you can be putting stuff out on Instagram, which is a bit bigger, but maybe a bit bigger. But by putting it all out there and then curating it or pulling it together, you actually have written a book online in public. And every time you put something out there, if someone comments on it, it grows or expands your own thought idea. So if I'm thinking about inventory and going, what's this thing about inventory? Why don't people do this with inventory? I can learn from someone else and then bring that back into what I'm writing about. So I kind of say writing a book is like putting the pieces of a quilt together. So hopefully that explains it somewhat. Twitter is very fast moving. Facebook, the communities are good. So jump into the communities. I have a community called the Xero Mastermind Group. Kelly Waters has a community called Kelly Parker has a community called the Watering Hole. A lot of the apps have their own community. The discussions that can happen in there are really, really useful. And from there, you can either learn or you can contribute. And LinkedIn is a bit of an unusual place. I like to think of LinkedIn as my personalized newspaper that I'm hearing and receiving news about the community who I'm involved with. It doesn't exactly work like that, but I try and put up newsworthy stuff and then again hear back from people on newsworthy stuff for themselves. I don't exactly understand TikTok, and Instagram I use for visuals. If you are looking to grow your social media, I always encourage you to put a photo with it. Put a photo of yourself, put a photo of your face in there. And that's one of the reasons I'll take a lot of photos of people, is so I have photos to share, but then also talk about something. If you jump on a graphical design solution called Canva, there are options in Canva to go, I need a robot in the sun, and it will artificially generate a picture for you. So it could be, I need a robot holding a mobile phone in the sun. And so you then have a photo that you could use. And the other thing is people like creating memes. Now, I'm very focused on microlearning. So a lot of the stuff I put out on social media is education about functions and features of a solution. And sometimes you can do that while showing yourself lifting weights, or with this artificially created robot photo, or, a photo of you with some friends and saying, okay, we were discussing this and this is what came out of it.
I love that. So you're telling stories and you're using visuals for the storytelling technique to capture their eye or to frame whatever you're writing. I love that.
Absolutely.
I haven't put that together with the pictures yet. That's really cool.
Yeah. And the algorithm works in different ways, and you have to kind of understand how the algorithm works. So putting something with a photo up there captures more eyes, and once more eyes have been captured, more are shared. And I really like speaking. And I have done lots of speaking events. And because I have a large social, I'll just take a glass of water.
Sure.
Back quite some time ago, Receipt Bank at the time contacted me and they said, you've got a big social media following. How about you go on a tour around Australia and give a talk about Receipt Bank? And I was like, sure, happy to do that. They were going to pay me to do this, fly me around, etc. And then it kind of all got, the plan all came out. And then they said, oh, you're promoting it. We're not going to promote it at all. And I was like, what? I'm doing all the promotion, but I'm working, like I've got my practice. I've designed this talk. I've got to get there, deliver it, come away. Wow. And so I was trying to promote it on social media. And even though I had large following numbers, I couldn't get anyone. I just got very, very small numbers to the event. So overall, it was a low turnout for this particular event. I had a great time. I got to tour Australia. But what I realized from that is I needed, if I wanted to get people out to events, I needed an email list. And I needed those people to be on an email list because that is the most focused way of connecting with people, because if I put something out on Twitter, they may not see it. And so that's one of the reasons I started the Accounting Apps newsletter, as well as sharing knowledge, microlearnings about accounting apps, which is my favorite topic. It also meant if I was speaking at an event, I'm speaking at an event in Melbourne in a few weeks, it goes in the newsletter with a link to register. And so I can see a increase in the number of people I can get to events, but also if people want someone to speak, if people are looking for speakers, do you pick B, who's got no email list, or A, who's got a big email list? And I'm sure it factors in, or a reach, I'm sure it factors into their decision.
So we're going to have a Gazette at Accounting High. It's going to be our email list. We're already working on it.
Absolutely.
I haven't started that yet, but that's actually really important too, to articulate. Like, you could be on the socials, you could be putting yourself out there and putting everything out there and getting engagement, but then you do a live event and nobody shows up. And even if you're spread all over, you need a focused, direct line for them. And whether that's, I wonder, does the podcast help with turnout? You've had a podcast. Tell me about the podcast too, because that's another channel. Like you have
Absolutely.
the email, you have Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and a podcast.
Absolutely. What the podcast does, it helps me meet people. It helps me share information about people. It helps me constantly improve my speaking abilities and my articulation and my knowledge about the industry. And so if I'm then in a position where I'm asked a question as I'm speaking, I can draw on that knowledge. So it's a massive knowledge. I learn a huge amount from actually doing the podcast. Mine, evergreen. So I very much, if I interview someone, we try and keep out all aspects of what time it is happening, what's happening locally, so people can go back and listen to them at any stage. What I have tried to do very much is share the human story behind the robots. And so very much trying to get the app founders or the cloud integrators or the people who are dealing with accounting technology to share their human story to help the connections happen there. And they will tell me that lots of people will come up to them afterwards and go, wow, I learned all of this stuff about you that I never knew. And it's a really nice showcase or showpiece for them.
Yeah. So stories. So in my journey to find this new name, because Sons of CPAs is now Accounting High, I came up with Accounting Stories at some point, and I thought that was genius until I realized, wait a second, Heather's already got it. Basically, you already have it. And so that continued to lead to this high school world that I'm building here, that whole metaphor. There's a lot of stories in this world, but there's still, it's landing on a lot of different levels of like the high school experience. A lot of people thought high, immediately they went straight to getting high. And while I do talk about that and I do get high, that is not what the name is. The name is more of the high school. But back to the stories part of it and the evergreen. So if we take out all the Xero conversation stuff, or the Xerocon conversations, which I think is still relevant, this is a pretty evergreen conversation, would you think?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's all relevant too.
Yeah, and you can go back and listen on some of them, but some of them, like if we take, for example, the Cloud Accounting podcast, which talks about itself as being a weekly news podcast, they still get people leaving them reviews saying, I just discovered your podcast and have listened to the entire back catalogue. So it obviously people, as long as they're aware that's happening, it's good.
For sure.
So,
Yeah.
and it's just something that I try to be a little bit, that was just always been my focus. Yeah. So, but we do sometimes have breakaway. We're going to cover the news episodes here, and this is just a specific news episode. And I'll say, don't listen to it if you don't want this news. And then sometimes I'll jump in and I'll put a postcard episode in, which is just, I need you to know about X, Y, and Z is happening. This is just a postcard episode. It only goes for like 4 minutes and just lets them know, and then I drop out. And sometimes afterwards I'll go and delete it after the fact.
Oh, that's interesting too. Yeah. So that's another like microphone, I guess. You've got literally a microphone, but you've got the email list, and then you can do your postcards in there. And then you've also got the socials too. So is there ever a situation where you're doing a postcard, an email, and posting things?
If I'm promoting something that I'm going to be doing, I guess.
Sure. Okay. And that's
but like it depends where I am. So if I'm writing books, I'm always out there asking lots of questions, monitoring things, putting up polls, etc. If I'm speaking at an event in London, I think next week, and I'll go and ask people, I'll put a thing out, English friends, what's happening in this aspect? What's happening? Are these your concerns for you? But in terms of the economy, I guess they've got a lot of concerns at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. Everybody does. I don't ever like to talk about the economy. I don't like to talk about the news or politics or anything like that. That's not my thing. So
yeah.
So as far as all these channels go, there is also speaking, which you've talked about too. So you've got the digital, the written, and in the smallest of forms, Twitter, all the way up to, and there's still visuals in there too, but the written for the most part on the socials.
Yeah.
And then you've got
So I wrote the blog post about Xerocon, attending all three, and that took me 2 full days to write, and that's about 6,000 words.
Okay. And so you got that, you got the written for email that you can, broadcast certain things to. You've got the spoken podcast. Before I jump to live in person, do you have YouTube or do you have anything that you're doing videos with too?
Oh yeah, I've got a YouTube channel with 1.5 million views.
Tell me about the YouTube.
So what I did with the YouTube channel was as I was developing training for solutions, I would develop videos for it as well. And in my early days, I did lots of intro to MYOB, intro to Xero courses. And so I would just sit down and create the videos for them, upload them to YouTube. In one case, I've made a sort of a 7-part, 7 or 8 hour course, and I get lots and lots of views on those. I think I get like 70,000 hours watched every month. So it's long. It goes against everything YouTube says. It's long, 1-hour videos going through various things. I got fed up of setting up people's payroll, so I took 2 days off and just designed a 2-hour payroll course that went online. It's probably out of date now, really, but it explained all aspects of payroll and setting it up, so I never had to do it again for people because I just okay, it's there. And so if anyone asked me, I said, here, you can pay me or you can just go and watch this video.
So is there a difference? So what I'm hearing nowadays, because the whole short, people want something quick, digestible, they're going to TikTok now too for these types of tutorials or different how-to things.
I want to learn payroll from TikTok.
No, I'm not. But I guess what I'm getting at is is that another way to have smaller, quicker, digestible videos to promote certain things too? Maybe. I guess I'm more asking because I think that's maybe the only one you're not on.
Yeah, I think there's one video of me dancing with people, but micro-learning, however the audience you need to speak to digests it. So I've got nothing against TikTok. I just haven't taken the time to learn it. But I fully believe in intensive microlearning, and YouTube has so much information from it. Why anyone needs to go to a university anymore? Because you can get everything from YouTube, and there's so many people putting stuff up there.
Everything on YouTube, except you got to get the ads unless you get a paid version, or are there still ads even with the paid YouTube?
Yeah, and that's the ads. It's what pay me. So I make money from YouTube.
Yeah.
Sorry, I make.
Well, we're gonna get into that too, I guess, if we have time. So we've got the YouTube, then you've got in person as another channel. How does everything funnel into that? Is that more also promotion, or are you doing microlearning there?
So before you were asking me about whether working from home, whether I got lonely, and what I do and what I've done for years now is once a month I organise, except during COVID or during our lockdowns, I organise an accounting technology discussion group meetup. And I have done that for years, and the local sort of incubator, the startup hub in the area, gave me free space, gave me free alcohol, and I just had people coming in from all over the place. Scott Schaff from Catching, who's now at Acuity, he actually came and gave us a talk there, and Rod Drury's come and given a talk there, and so I work on my own for all the time, but then would organise one event that I could actually see people in real life. But it was on a topic that it was of interest to me as well. And that's kind of how I would get my in-person, in real life connections with people. And that also gave me the emceeing and hosting practice. So back to your question, which was, it was around speaking.
Sure. So how do things funnel into that? Like, is that more of a, and you may have answered this already. It's, when you're doing things that you're interested in already, are they things that you've already written about? Is this, because the books is another aspect of this too, like as far as channels go.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the speaking, for example, the accounting associations will come to me and they'll go, we're thinking of putting on a conference, a 5-hour conference, and this is what we're thinking of the topic being, and I will join their conference team and work with them to get various speakers for that. And I will typically MC and facilitate the entire event. So the speakers are talking on the expert topics. I may run a panel session during that, to a moderate panel session, and I'll facilitate and make sure everyone is comfortable and delivers what they need to deliver, etc. And typically when the associations ask me to do that, they'll fly me to every city in Australia and to New Zealand to do that. And so I'm always learning. I'm always meeting new people and this opportunity to learn from accounting. And I'm always speaking with the community. So I very much am a conduit and talking to the association. The community want to hear from this. They want to hear about this. They want to learn about this. And I, having a deep knowledge of the industry myself, am in a good position to ensure that they get what's going to be relevant and practical to them at the time. Hopefully that answers your question.
No, it did. Let's talk some numbers, I guess, too. But I did want to kind of funnel all of it up. So that of all of these channels and of all of the places that you do, what do you pay the most attention to, or what do you care about the most? Repeat all of them. So we got podcasts, we got YouTube, we've got books, we've got the socials, all the different social platforms. I think that's it, right?
That I am being kind and providing quality content. That's what I care about most of all.
Well, I guess.
I
Well,
know you wanted me to pick a particular channel.
yeah, but maybe that's not. Maybe that's not the point. Maybe the answer to that is that you're just omnipresent in all of them, and you're able to disseminate whatever idea you have. Do you just effortlessly?
The relevant.
Yeah. Do you just effortlessly go between each channel, or is it just whatever you're paying attention to that day? Do you have a system, a process?
Oh no, I effortlessly go between each channel, but some things are more relevant for a LinkedIn business conversation, and some things are more relevant because I have the Xero mastermind group with I think 5,000 people. Are more relevant for that because I know that community is full of app developers who want to. Currently, we're having a conversation on what additional features and functionalities would they like to see on the marketplace. The only place to have that conversation is in a group with lots of apps who are actually on that marketplace. Because if I just put it out into anywhere else, it would just be too dilute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so it just depends on what the conversation is.
Yeah. I've never been able to you're helping me a lot right here too, because I've never been able to distinguish between any of them, and I just treat all of them like they're iMessage. I basically treat every platform like it's just texting somebody, and I just kind of have the same type of conversations on each one, and I don't really change anything up. And it's not effortless either because I don't get any engagement on any of these things. Let's talk about.
But
go ahead.
I would focus if you're in that situation. I would focus on just simply one until you get it, and then move to another one. I wouldn't necessarily feel that you have to be across all of them. And the people who post the exact same thing across all three, that's boring. We all see it.
Yeah. Well, I'm only on LinkedIn and Twitter right now, and most of my time is spent on Twitter because I like that shade of blue better than the LinkedIn shade of blue, and I do everything based on color. So if it's a blue app or if it's blue, then I tend to be gravitating toward it, except for Facebook. I don't know why I can't get on Facebook, but it's just too messy for me. Facebook is that was the first social network. I think in my mind it was maybe not the first. American Online, AIM, was like the first. that was the first one I was ever on. Or I guess there's bulletin boards, things like that, but it all evolved from there. There's blog too that you have. So let's kind of go into the numbers, right? So you've got large followings everywhere. You got a blue check on Twitter. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we need to go over all of them, but which like, would you say all the platforms, which one do you have the biggest following? Would you say, or the biggest numbers that we can?
I don't know. I think it's 10,000 subscribers on YouTube plus. I think it's
11,000 on Twitter followers.
11,000 there. I think it's about 15 on LinkedIn.
It's almost 17 on LinkedIn.
There and but the thing is, it's not the number; it's the quality. So I've got 5,000 in my Facebook group, and I reject 80% of applicants. So it's the quality because I could have 100,000 in
it's
there.
It's a private group.
I reject because they need to be advanced users. They need to be able to have those advanced conversations. Yeah. So Facebook, only the groups really have any effect for me on Facebook. Okay. Yeah. So
Facebook, that's sort of like a community too. People sometimes I've seen Discord groups or Slack groups. Do you mess with any of those either?
Reddit. I love Reddit.
Oh, Reddit's another one. Yeah. Tell me about that.
I love Reddit. Yeah. I go in Reddit and I just fascinates me what people ask and put in there. And I follow the /accounting subreddit and see what issues people are having in there and particular areas. It's useful for learning new things from other people. And I always try and be helpful as well. But it's not necessarily good for broadcasting your own message, but you can be helpful and you can learn from other people.
I'm going to work omnipresent into this title of your episode because I feel like you're everywhere all at once. And it stresses me out to think about all of these different platforms, but it seems like you're thriving with that and you're able to do that. And you've been doing it since.
I've not got a lot of commitments now. My kids are no longer at home, so
Yeah. But this has helped you thrive and continue to grow your brand through all of these channels almost.
yeah, absolutely.
And so kindness is a word that came up. Obviously accounting, but you since 14 have focused on that as an industry vertical for you. It's still aimed at accountants. That's the audience in general. And I think that's your audience everywhere you are, everywhere you go. Is there ever a point where you're talking about too much that you still need to focus it, or say like, this is a podcast for conversations, this is a podcast for tips, this is a podcast for book reviews? Like, it's just, to me, it seems like this is a podcast for accountants. That's the audience, and then whatever you're delivering. But I guess not just that in particular, but do you ever find that sometimes it's too broad and you have to go a little bit more niche, or?
I think I'm very niche.
Whatever one. Yeah.
It always frustrates me when people say, I'm a failed accountant, or I've left the accounting industry. And I just don't understand. I just don't understand that mentality and why someone would say that. I think that it's a part of your being once you are an accountant, and you can still be entrepreneurial, and you can still go off and join a Marvel movie or do a podcast. I think that it's still so much. It is the oxygen of business, and that's what you have. You have that deep understanding, and I'm extraordinarily proud of our industry and what we have, how we have supported so many people. And I imagine America is the same as England, with very little acclaim from the media, how much we actually supported small businesses and what was happening. So, yeah, I'm really proud to be an accountant. So I'm not sure if that answered you. But, okay, when someone comes and asks me to speak on something, I will bring them back to my speciality is accounting technology. But I'm an old lady. I don't understand the ins and outs of accounting technology. So that's the thing, is I'm curious and will ask people about it and can only explain it to the level that I understand it.
But that's also a term that most people can relate to as well. Yeah.
And it brings other people in on the journey. And for sort of people listening in who ever want to explain something, a gift is meeting an old lady at a barbecue, a family barbecue, who asks you about what you do. And just being able to explain it in terms that they understand is such a gift for you to be able to do that, because it's really important to break it down so you can bring other people on the journey with you.
Why an old lady and not an old man? Because the old men don't care.
An old man.
They're not going to ask the questions, though. They're the ones telling the stories, right?
No, it's just having a person who doesn't understand, but is curious is wonderful. It's just a gift.
I love that.
Yeah.
Do you think I need to, now back to the other question, do you think I need to focus more on this podcast because I'm doing too many different things, or is the variety surprising and useful, and between a regular episode and a Nick's tips and a book report?
The focus is Scott. And so I'm happy with whatever Scott's talking about. And as long as I can see, I can start the episode.
You got a point there. Somebody else told me that.
The sort of, if there's a description in the episode that I understand, I don't know if you have the goodies, goody, yum. No, you don't.
But I like to hear this because keep going, man.
A goodies episode, the way it starts, you never know how it's going to finish from the way it starts. And that's sometimes with your episodes, you don't know how they're going to finish. And so I don't want to waste my time, but I always enjoy listening to you. And if I'm going on a long walk, then it's like, oh, Scott's going to be with me on this walk, and that's fine.
I love that. But you've always been a big supporter of mine. I see you've been promoting it since early days. And now with this new rebrand, what do you think of the rebrand? Have you seen it? Have you listened to it?
Oh, I love it. Made the little sign up there.
I love that. So we actually have intros now. We have morning announcements, and we're introducing the episode, and I've got a office administrator, Miss Smiles. No, that's Alex Miles. Shout out to Alex. She's been going through, she listens to the whole episode and then does a summary on the front end of it. So you know where you're going on that journey. And you know if it's something that you're actually going to want to keep listening to or not. And I think I've been missing that. That's been a big missing piece of this because, like you said, we just dive right into it. And sometimes it's a great episode, but nobody can get there because they can't go on that journey. They don't have the time, and it's the variableness of it.
Yeah.
But that's the consistent factor is I'm in every episode. So
yeah. And in terms of, like you said, I've been a big supporter since the beginning. One of my roles I feel for the community is to go out and absorb the information and curate it back into the community, things that I think they'll find useful. So to try and save them time. So that's it's while
you're a guide.
You think
I said this earlier. You're a guide. That is exactly the description of a guide.
Yeah. But so I'm not promoting you, I'm helping them.
Okay.
But you just benefit from it.
I benefit from it, yeah. Well, no, but you're actually listening. I think that if you didn't like it, you wouldn't listen, right?
Yeah.
Like don't like it, don't listen. That's what I always say. Like people have anything to say, just don't listen. Like that's all good. Doesn't hurt me.
And I imagine, did you find when you went to New Orleans Xerocon, because that would have been the first time that you'd have come in contact with listeners?
Well,
how was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's been actually really eye-opening for me because people will repeat something that I said and I forget that I said it, and I'll say that was great, like whatever they said, and they say, yeah, but that's because you said it, and then I forgot I did. So sometimes it just brings back, like, part of it's a humbling experience, but it's also an ego booster at the same time. It's a little weird to see to see that happening, and to me, I've been doing this selfishly most cases because I want to learn. I want to learn more about you. I want to learn about the guests, and what I'm getting out of this is I'm meeting people, sharing info. I'm learning how to be a better listener, not just a better speaker. I talk a lot, but I'm learning how to become a better listener and active listener. And I'm learning more about myself doing this more than anything. I'm learning about the people I'm interested in and myself at the same time. So this is more of a journey than anything else. And I think it's pretty dope that people are on this journey too, and they're listening and they like it. And that's what's encouraging. That's at least keeps me going. Maybe it's not necessarily, we did an episode on the ego is the enemy. And so can go back and listen to that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So two comments on that. Firstly, I interviewed this award-winning New Zealand accounting practice company, and they said the best course they went on was active listening, which is what you're going through in this. You're learning active listening, which is such an important part of being an advisor, an accounting advisor. And I know that that's not your focus for it, but the active listening is really important.
No, and that's I would love to have just an episode just on that and have one of them on and talk about that, because it's something that it's a very iterative process that I've been slowly learning through editing episodes. So I was doing all my edits. I'm not doing all of them anymore, actually, since we've last spoke. I have an editor now, but I was doing all of my own editing, and that was me learning too. Like, oh God, I am interrupting them. I need to shut up. Like, I can't help myself in the moment a lot of times because I get excited and I want to interject or I want to say something, and I don't put myself in the shoes of this person's trying to tell me a story and I'm sitting there interrupting. And that was always like part of the whole like journey and the learning process too. So I'm on this journey along with everybody else. Yeah.
And some people do the So like you'll notice, I'm just standing here nodding my head with my mouth really quiet, listening to you. Mm-hmm. But other people will go, and it's so annoying to listen to on the podcast.
Well, you've helped me a lot too in the audio. Like, you've given me tips. Like, this is, you probably shouldn't be doing this, or the audio is a little low on this one, or early on. I think our audio is better now. Mm-hmm. You noticed that before we started recording, I wanted to make sure everything was tight, everything was good, so then you don't have to fix it all in post, right?
Absolutely. And back to your point about meeting people who've listened to the episode, I think they feel like they're your friend. And I think it's really, for me, it's really important to actually take the time to acknowledge that they've listened and thank them for listening. And I always say, do you want to get a photo, or do you want a hug, or do you want something, because they're gentle people. Many accountants are naturally introverted people. For them to come up and just go, oh, thank you. You've been with me for 40 hours on 40 walks in the last year or something like that. That's really coming out of their shell and really important for them.
Thank you. That's good advice too. And that's another perspective to look at it that I've not had so much. I'm like, it's in part of me, I just like, if somebody doesn't even say anything, then I got nothing to say too, but I can ask more questions, like ask what, just ask about them and learn more about them. I want to have anybody on this show. Like, and it's, that very, very much, I believe strongly that anybody doing this has something to offer.
Yes. Yeah. But sometimes I found, especially in the early days, the people who pitch themselves,
they're the worst. They're the worst. They have nothing to offer because sometimes they're too shallow too. I've had some guests that are just like not giving me anything. They just want to yeah. But the reserved ones, if you can get them talking about the right thing, they could go deep. And I've had some really good conversations with some introverted people that normally don't talk too. So that's always good too. And kind of
it's a gift for them and for the audience.
Yeah. And it's, I'm trying to be more intentional and careful about the guests now, and just, making sure that we have a bit of a theme to go on. I already had done my research for yours, and I kind of knew what direction we were going to go in. I also want to talk about, income streams too from all your channels. So which ones have you monetized and which ones bring the most money in? And if you want to give me hard numbers, we like to talk about hard numbers in here. I'm happy to talk about total earnings across the board, and then we can break it down to sections, right?
I'm not going to share total earnings.
Why not? So why don't people like to share numbers? I'll talk about my numbers all day, but I guess I'm different.
Let me see if I can like pulling figures out of my head. I publish on Medium, and I get $1 a month from Medium. But
we'll start on the smallest, and we'll work our way up, right?
Yeah, it's an experiment, and I figure that's a place to start, and you never know what will happen to it. I publish on YouTube, and I make about $400 a month from there. Okay. So that's a nice lunch.
Pair of shoes, maybe. Pair of Jordans. Yeah.
I'm a columnist for the Chartered Accountants magazine, Acuity magazine, and I have typically a monthly or a bi-monthly article with them, which I get paid a set amount for. Where I get book royalties from the books that I sell. The things that you may not realize from that is I get payments from the library as well. So all the libraries that stock it, I get money. Oh, wow. And copyright. So all the universities that photocopy it, I get money from that as well. So what happens is you get streams of money in all through the year of different amounts that you're not really expecting. So that can be quite interesting.
It could also be difficult to budget. But I guess it's all bonus, right? It's all mailbox money.
Yeah, it's all coming in. I obviously have my Xero subs and my Xero clients happening, and that's a nice income. And I have my strategic app partners. So my strategic app partners on all of my social banners are light pink, and anything in dark pink is a current strategic partner. And they pay me on a monthly basis. And so I've got, I think, 14 of them at the moment.
That's important because I have this blank space on our cover, and I'm going to start selling that. What can I sell it for? Because I don't know. I had some numbers in mind, but I'm not quite sure what you can sell those banners for. And that's basically what you're doing on those too, right? Because the pink, it jumps out at you. Yeah.
And I do other things other than them just being on my social media banners, but yes. And I guess you start and then you increase gradually, don't
Yeah.
you? Or you commit for a short time and increase if necessary.
Give me some numbers on that for a strategic partner. Just roughly. You don't have to give any names or anything, but what of the 14,
Well,
they're all paying you about monthly, right?
Well, yeah. Initially, I started with gold, silver, bronze.
Oh, cool.
But then I found it was too much of a commitment. And so then I pulled back and said, no, we're just doing bronze packages.
Okay.
Because it was just too much of a commitment to juggle.
Well,
too
and it's
many of
also
those.
confusing as hell,
Yeah.
right? Like, is this person on gold or is this person on silver?
Yeah.
For
yeah,
you,
it
if
was
you
a
got
bit
14
confusing.
of them.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. And it kind of goes up. It ebbs and flows as it goes through and what I'm doing. But I try and be as transparent as possible about that. And
So what are you charging? Like
and just
$2,000-3,000 a month for these for bronze?
I'm not gonna. I'm not
no
gonna
sharing numbers. That's all right. I I like to push. I'm not gonna push too hard though.
Yeah, I think it would be difficult for them as well.
Okay.
If I say anything, but there's currently in the Xero app marketplace, there's 1,150 apps out there. So there's other apps too for people to partner with.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not looking to mooch off of anybody either. There's plenty of fish in the sea. There's a big sea of apps.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. Yeah, and interestingly, like I did that Xero tour, my tour de Xero, and I didn't try and I didn't speak business with anyone at all. I just was like, no, I'm just here. Just tell me. I'm not here to get a new client or anything. Just tell me what you're doing. And it was all sort of research, if that makes sense.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing research for the past 2 years, year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And because the thing is, whatever you charge, you got to make sure that you feel comfortable that you're delivering on what you're charging.
Absolutely.
I think that's possibly the thing there. Are you delivering on what you're charging, and are you comfortable with that? Because you can charge whatever you want, but are you then comfortable that you're delivering what they need out of that?
Yeah, and if you're not, they're not going to buy again, for sure. And
Yeah,
also
absolutely.
it's like it turns into the snake oil thing, right? Like so I've always kind of based it on the number of listeners, because I don't look at the socials as anything. Like I don't even think of those numbers as meaning anything either. But I feel like eventually, there is ways to be strategic about that too. And I said the word strategic, and this is what you call it. Maybe that's just a subconscious. So a strategic app partner. What does that define? That what do you do for them?
Oh, okay, that's a great question. I wasn't exactly sure what to call them, and I've kind of fallen on strategic app partner. Yeah. I try and be
SAP.
as
SAP would be the acronym, right?
I try and be as transparent as possible about that. I am partners with that particular partner at the time. What it does is it gives me an opportunity to learn what their solution does, spend time with them. I offer to spend an hour with them every month, anyone in their business. So they may get the marketing people to spend time with me. They may get the CEO to spend time with me. It can be anyone, and they have the opportunity then to ask me questions, etc. I am the outside eyes of the accounting and the bookkeeping community, reflecting back on them and what they're doing. So I typically don't want to know anything that they're going to do, but I can. So that's not sort of where I'm sitting, but I can go, you put this up on social media and the link doesn't work, or I registered and I didn't get a confirmation email. Or they may come to me and go, we're about to put this webinar out. Can you go through it? And I will go through it and talk to them about their language in it, and talk to them about using the correct words, the correct phrasing towards the accounting and bookkeeping community, how they're referencing compliance, making sure that's correct. So it can be, they can have these content pieces, and I can go through them with a sort of a fine-tooth comb, not editing them, but making sure they're suitable for the accounting and the bookkeeping community. If I see issues happening in the accounting and bookkeeping community, that people are upset with stuff, I can go back and say, hey, this is happening. Can you explain this? So I can go back and explain it to them. I will give you an example. This is kind of quite well known. I was with the Dex, that massive rebrand, and I was with one of the, I don't know, the managing directors, and I'm like, it's really bizarre that my clients now have to call up a serial killer every time they want to use your solution. And they're like, what are you talking about? That doesn't happen. And I said, get out your phone and call up your solution. And they went DEX, and then they had a face of a serial killer on their
Dexter?
phone. Yeah. And I was like going, my clients have to do that every single time. And they're like, oh, we didn't realize that. And it's like, I wasn't working with Dex during the rebrand.
Well, yeah.
But it's talking to them about things like that. Like, I don't understand why people would go through a rebrand and not talk with the community.
Tell me about it. Sometimes you see like a rebrand and it's almost identical to a different brand, and they just don't even realize it. And then now they're competing on different levels too. It's kind of crazy. I see a lot of derivative names and apps out there, and then they go through another rebrand. It's just very confusing. And I just went through a rebrand too, so there's that.
Yeah. But you talked about it constantly before, during, and after. You've talked about it constantly. And so, yeah, so there's a lot involved in, I'm a fine-tooth comb, detail-orientated type of person. And I was seeing a lot of these things, and I was going back and telling them stuff. And I was like, why am I wasting my time doing all of this? And I was like, people need to engage me for these services, because I can't waste all my time doing this. But the other thing I do is I really spend a lot of time supporting the community. So they support me to support the community, which is very kind of them. So if the community currently has an issue with an issue in the media that's happening, and I will go and speak directly to the CAANZ on their behalf and say, can we do something here? Can we do something here? Can we support them here?
So
I see that as a role as well in terms of what I'm doing. They're giving me capacity to talk to support the community.
So you're a bridge between the apps and the community. I say you're a bridge app because there's certain apps that are bridging products together. You're like the API for the community and the apps, right? Because you speak their language and all throughout. That's kind of what you've been talking about, is you want to speak in that vernacular or the language that accountants are going to understand. And a lot of apps don't understand accountants. They don't. Yes. They don't necessarily understand us and how we think, and they're coming at it like any other type of marketing engagement, and that's different. Accountants are very analytical, very much, we need the proof, we want the facts, and we want to know how it's going to help us, and that's different marketing too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do. And just trying to help them get there. And even if they like engage a new marketing person on their team, and just having someone talk with them through that, remembering that we're all humans, and remembering not try to hit some sales KPI when you meet us.
The Heather Zapier. That's you like the Amaka.
I think Heather Saitler already has.
I said when I said it out loud, I had to take it back. I was going to call you Amaka then, because that's one that's down in your neck of the woods, and they focus just on accountants too. So it's like that's that specific niche of being a bridge between apps and accountants. And there's others that I've had on that are similar, but you do everything in your own unique way. So I said this on Dave Barrett's episode as well. I said that we're all aliens in a way. We're all different and unique, and some people show it and some people don't. I think you've always kind of just shown your true colors, whether they're pink or green or blue, or you've never gone green though. You even tried to go green and you can't. This is how I feel. I don't wear green. I don't have green, any colors in any clothing. I just can't go green. I don't have any shoes that have, maybe I have one pair of shoes that have a little bit of green pop in it. They are kind of an aqua green though. There's a blue in your green on those lights too. Yeah. It's a blend of I think that's more of like a teal than anything else. But I joke though. I joke about colors. My rap name is Little Toddler because I'm a toddler. Like at heart, I have this fascination with numbers, colors, letters, the acronyms, words, just very basic things. I want to. Ooh, pink. That is your brand right there. That went back to green.
No, it's just going to cycle
switch through. Cool.
Yeah, I can probably there.
So
I'll just leave it on pink to make you happy.
So yeah, but you got some.
I look now really pink.
You got some gold in here. So why would you call them all bronze? Why don't you just call them all gold? Your strategic.
They don't. That's just my info. They don't
insider.
know.
Yeah, well, you could call them pink.
Yeah.
You could call them the pink group, right? Because that's the color that they are, right?
I'll announce it to them.
Yeah, you could be a gray partner or a pink partner.
Absolutely. Yeah. Gray. Oh, I see. Oh, brilliant. If I can only get that 1,140 apps to give me money for being gray.
Oh, right. So those are all the, you got to have them give you something, right? So you got, I'll give a shout out to the ones I see. So you got Microkeeper, Zbert or Expert. How do you, what is that?
Expert.
It's like Expert. Oh, I get it now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a quality auditing tool.
MinuteDoc, Cinder, Booma, Deader Daddy, Fathom, Anature, DiviPat, the outsourced accountant. DiviPay. Oh, it's Pay?
Oh, okay. Yes, it is Pay. I think it might be a typo.
There might be a typo. Well, we got your typos on here. I'm an attention to detail person. I'm an accountant. Float, ChargeBee, and the outsourced accountant. Cool. So how did you get that website, endorsementdisclosure.com? That just seems like you must have got that an early stage.
Don't know. Oh, yeah, it was just there.
It was just there.
It's a bit of a weird website, isn't it? But yeah, no, I was able to get that. I was lucky to get that link.
It's not really weird because if anybody else is looking at that, then how do I get my name pink? And they're going to go to that site and you could tell them.
True. Yeah. So.
And Heather Smith is pink on there too.
Yeah.
I didn't leave that one. I was saving that one for last. That's dope.
I try and be as transparent as possible in an interesting way. And it is always a bit of a challenge, but
you do.
Hopefully people get it.
And I mean, you had this up for a while, but did you do all of your branding yourself? Yes. Did you hire a company?
Wayne Schmidt, I speak with. Do you know Wayne Schmidt?
I feel like I've heard the name.
He was the original country manager and first employee of Xero here in Australia. Okay. He's a lovely guy, and he just always gives me, you should do this, you should do that. But he's currently on an 8-week, 13-week boat tour from the North Pole to the South Pole. So being one of the early employees of Xero, he can do that, bless him. Oh, he'd be a fun person to go on the show. That was
my next question. You already beat me to it. So I was going to say, aside from Rod and Wayne, so Rod Drury, I'm going to need your help to hook that up because I got no connection to Rod. Who else? Who are some big cloud CEOs that I should have on? Kenji recently suggested to me I need to get some more. I need to parlay on this Dave Barrett interview and get some more big cloud CEOs. And he suggested Rod. And I said, I have Heather coming on. I can ask Heather about Rod. Who are some others?
Well, how about Chris O'Neill, who is the new growth manager for Xero in the States.
So we're going to have too much Xero on here. I got to get Rod first. Okay. Rod first. Then I can have Chris. I got to have Ben on. Ben hasn't been on yet.
Yeah, Ben's on paternity leave, so we want to give him some space. Rod is challenging to get because he is windsurfing all the time.
Okay.
He's into his other stuff. But what you would have to do is he is getting involved with some other apps and some other sustainability solutions. Ooh. So you may be able to get him in that way.
I will find out what those sustainability solutions are and try to bridge that angle because I just want to talk to him about anything. It could be absolutely anything. Yeah. He's been brought up a lot on the show.
So he's really big on Instagram.
Okay.
So jump over and follow him on Instagram, and maybe that's how you absorb what's happening on Instagram.
Well, I have my production assistant or office administrative. She's on Instagram, so I can. That's how I'm getting into Instagram. I am not touching it. I can't go in there because I know it's going to be a time suck, and I'm doing one at a time. I actually am doing what you said. I am just focused on Twitter this year. That's it. This whole year is just Twitter. hoping the end of the year.
But if you want to get to know Rod, you're going to have to follow him. So just maybe follow one person.
Well, no, we have it. We have an Accounting High Instagram now. So
there you go. Follow him on it. You're going to have, that's the only way you're going to see
We're going to poke around on there. That's how we got Dave Barrett. I went on Twitter and I tagged and I asked if he can come on, and that's how we made that happen. So I think that'll be cool.
Maybe someone like Jared Armstrong, who has been in the Xero world since the very beginning, does now work with all the different solutions, but is based, it's just a small business based out of New Zealand. And just he can talk you through that what happened there and what's currently going on there. Guy from Ignition, he's always an interesting. Oh, has he? There you go.
He's already had 2. He had an Ignition remix. Yeah, we already had the Ignition remix.
Oh, did he? Fantastic. Ainsley Damery. from
Ainsley.
Clarity.
I've had a couple of calls with him back in the day about Clarity, right?
He's a nice guy and speaks very well.
That's a good one. I can. He emailed me not fairly recently, but I know he did at some point. Cool. So, Heather, this was a wonderful conversation. Is there any meat still on the bone? Did I leave anything out here?
Well, I want to come back on for the second one if Guy's had
Absolutely. to. we got to let a little bit of time pass between. Guy was actually real early on because I've been using Ignition, for a while now. So he was like, I'm surprised he even came on because the first episode he came on was real early days, but then I had him on again. Actually, I want you to define microlearning for me. I was going to ask that earlier.
Oh, okay. Microlearning is short learning that you're going to learn something from. So typically something under 15 minutes that you're actually going to learn and absorb some information from. But it could be in a TikTok video. So it could be, I don't know how long they are, 15 seconds or something.
Yeah, that's what I think of. When I think of microlearning, I'm thinking of like TikTok, but I guess you're going to have to you're using microlearning as the phrase for everything that you're doing because it's all little bite-sized pieces, except for those long YouTube ones. So is that your longest form content besides books?
Yeah,
absolutely. And YouTube and podcasts?
Yeah, and books. Yeah, absolutely.
Which is still a bit of micro.
But the microlearning, but the microlearning, you can push people along every single day with microlearning. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what, and I really encourage the apps who are listening in is to push out that microlearning. Stop telling us how to run our business. Stop running these webinars on how to run our business. Put out information about how your solution actually works, what your top favorite features and functionalities of your solution, what features and functionalities are people not using of your solution. Just so much information that you could actually put out there that I get that you think is boring, but that actually we'll learn from and learn. And the stickier we become with your solution, the better it is for you.
I like that. Yeah, that's good advice. The boring stuff is actually useful to some people. It might be boring to you, but it's useful to the listeners or to the outside world, to your potential users.
Sometimes just knowing about a setting change deep within the solution that you didn't even think to ask about can just make a significant difference.
Give me an example of an app that does that well.
Receipt Bank or Dex put out a lot of information about their solution. Yeah, they put out a reasonable amount of information about their solution. Yeah, but Fathom puts out has a lot of long form videos about the different features and functionalities of their solution. And when they release something, they're very clear on explaining what that solution is.
How about Carbon?
But Carbon focuses very much on educating the community.
And they don't talk about their product much at all. Carbon Magazine, they're just talking about mindfulness and everything outside of the product.
They've got a massive library resource, which is good, and their content is good. But, they just don't put out information about their solution.
Yeah. I honestly don't even pay attention to the information on the solution. I do pay attention to their content, though. I'm trying to think of other apps that I pay attention to the content and what I get out of it. Like for Carbon, I get a lot of knowledge on how to run a business and how to be a better business owner. And they have good categories on there too. but it takes a special skill to be able to do that effectively. And I don't think everybody can do that. I don't think everybody could just say, I'm going to teach you how to be a business owner, because that's not what you're out to do. I think Carbon is actually a unique example in that, how they do it. Xero has a lot of good content about the product, and the training about the product. I think FreshBooks is doing good out there too. You talked about
Zapier. Zapier does it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, Zapier does a great job. Yeah, and Trello. Yeah.
Those are good ones.
Yes.
I can't really think of any off the top of my head. I got to bring up. So you've been talking about your tours, right? So I'm about to go on tour with FreshBooks. They're doing the road shows.
Fantastic.
And I'm doing a wrap on the tour too. So they're having their road shows, and I'm going to do a live podcast at each destination. But I'm also in the process of putting together a FreshBooks wrap. So by the time this comes out, I'll be done with it. But it's going to be Outcasts, So Fresh, So Clean. That's going to be the track that I parody for the FreshBooks. But I haven't even got to the hook or anything yet. I just have the idea, so it'll get there. But
very good.
Yeah, I mean that's.
Where are you going?
So Atlanta, Portland, Toronto, Austin, and Vegas. Those are the tour dates.
Awesome. So you're leaving the country?
A little bit, just to touch. Like Toronto's just on the other side of the border, pretty much. But
that's where I lived for 3 years.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, we went over that too. Singapore, too. Give me a story about Singapore to close us out.
Oh, okay. So I had to do my final ACCA, or my accounting qualification exams, in Singapore. They were held in an outside wet market, and I was sitting at a massive concrete slab.
Was it literally wet too? Because when I think of Singapore, I also think of rain, but I don't know. Maybe.
It wasn't raining, but the wet markets meant that there was like chickens and stuff around, and there was monkeys in the tree jumping around while I was sitting my final exam, and that was like the settings they had for us to do our final exams.
That sounds pretty unique. Yeah. That's an experience right there. I mean, but honestly, it's just normal for everybody out there. Like, this is just doing business.
Well, that was obviously back in the 90s when I did that. Who knows? That was like what they set me to do. And I got there and it's like everyone's just lined up, and that's how we were doing it. So when you travel, you just kind of like, there's no point traveling and going, oh, this isn't the way I do it. It's like, this is the way I'm going to do it.
Do you travel lightly? When you travel, you do a lot of travels.
Yeah.
Do you travel very light?
Yeah. Yes, I did. Okay. Yes, I did. I brought a big suitcase to New Orleans because I thought the Americans would go big on swag, and they did. But I normally travel very lightly, and I'm a very efficient traveler. I play the Justin Timberlake Super Bowl compilation while I pack.
Okay.
So I put it on. And
you have a routine. That's actually smart. That's it. So there's there's probably part of you where you hear it and then subconsciously you know what you're going to do because it's just part of that. Yeah. Oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to pick that up because I do a lot of traveling and I'm terrible at packing. I'm the worst.
I've got a travel checklist.
Yeah.
If you search Heather Smith,
I got an app now.
Travel checklist.
Oh, really? Wait.
I've got the best.
You have a Heather Smith travel checklist?
Just search Heather Smith travel checklist. I have so much stuff.
Okay. So, Heather, that's another thing, too. You have a very common name. There's a lot of Smiths. Yet, anytime I say Heather Smith, everybody knows who I'm talking about. Like, you've owned that name, and that's a difficult name to take ownership of.
There is a Playboy bunny out there, and there is a lady who writes a lot of books about cows out there. So it is what it is. You found the checklist?
Yeah, I didn't look it up yet. I can't do two things at once.
I thought you were. No, that's fine. But yeah, look it up. It's very. Well,
you said a Playboy Playmate or something, and that distracted me too.
Oh, is that what you're looking?
That's what I'm going to look up now. I'm on the internet here. That would have got first on the list over the travel checklist, but I'm going to do the travel checklist too.
Yeah. Dope. And there's someone who's in the United Nations, but within the industry, hopefully.
Well, this is going to be a fun episode. It'll be out in about 6 months, hopefully sooner, but we'll get it out there. And I'm excited.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. I'm excited for your second round
so much.
too. I'll have a co-host with me second round. I intentionally did not want to co-host on your episode. It wasn't like nobody showed up. I just some guests I want to have solo now. I don't really need a co-host anymore. I could stand on my own 2 feet.
Fair
I'm off
enough.
of my training wheels. Still a little toddler, but
Fair enough. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Scott,
Heather.
for having me on this show. It has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed speaking with you. Really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who's listening into the show. Really had a great time.
Thanks, Heather.